Hola, hola, mi nombre es Yoshi Gonzaga y bienvenidos a Yoshi's Garden. Hello, everybody, and like I was saying, welcome to Yoshi's Garden. Before we even start, there's a tradition that was instilled by me, by my parents, and my parents' parents, which is before the start of a new era, before the start of just anything, or just if you want to clear your space, is burning Palo Santo. So Palo Santo is actually, like I said, good for cleansing, which is used in many of our Latino cultures, especially in Mexican culture, especially for the curanderismo section too, just to like cleanse that space from any bad juju, cleansing that space just from anything. So starting a podcast is something that I always wanted to do, and it's a good thing to start fresh, and I hope some of it goes to y'all's too. So cleansing ourselves, cleansing the environment, and cleansing y'all as well from home who are watching and supporting this. So let's get started with our first episode ever of Yoshi's Garden. And today's episode is going to be based on roots and heritage. That foundation that we all have of growing up and becoming who we are. And a quote that I always like, using when it comes to like roots is preserving memory is preserving identity. Or preservando tu memoria es preservando tu identidad. Que claro, como muchos nosotros crecimos con familias latinas, waking up every morning, whether it's to the sound of like Elvis Crespo, to Celia Cruz, to La Jenny Rivera, even, at night before going to sleep, watching las novelas como un amor, o nosotros que crecimos con RBD, so it's like those little memories that bring joy to us to this day, which is very nice. And I think that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. Claro, las memorias pueden venir de diferentes maneras, Memories can be good, but memories can also be bad. But every memory that we have makes us who we are today. And for example, everything I had to go through and been through, maybe the person who I am today, maybe the person who I want to be in the future. That's why, made me start this podcast. Overall, my memories or anybody's memories, makes them who they are. For example, the way I grew up here in the South shaped who I am today. The same way going to college shaped me what I wanted to be and how proud I am to be Mexican overall and Latino as well. The experiences here that I faced here in the South were not as pleasant as you can say. I finally learned what microaggressions are and how microaggressions can be used against you at times to make you feel down, to make you feel unwanted in many spaces. For example, one of the microaggressions that I went through was in high school, my senior year of college, when I didn't know what I was going to do, whether I was going to go to college, because, representation mattered at the time, and the people who were mentoring me didn't know how to go about with someone who had DACA at the time, and it frustrated me at times. But then with the microaggressions that I received at school, it made me realize that maybe like higher education wasn't a thing for me. When it turned out that I actually had a lot of possibilities, I had a lot of networking that I could do, which made me go to college up north. But going back to the memory that till this day still kind of like is very vivid in my mind, is that one time my senior year in econ class, we had a contest between every period. And of course, my class won because we got the highest score in the test at the time. So at the time, our teacher was like, hey, like the winning class is going to get most. And that's what we did. At the time, people were picking whether they were going to get burritos, whether they're going to get quesadillas, or whether they're going to get nachos. And my friend and I, we were both like, well, we don't eat burritos like that. I don't even like beans. And I guess that was very hard to believe because we're both Mexican and brown kids. So this girl next to us decided to turn around and have an opinion about it. She said, and I quote, "Isn't that like your people's food? Why do y'all like it?" Mind you, she wasn't even American. She was from Australia. And in my mind, I was thinking at the time, maybe does she ride a kangaroo all the time to go to class? Does she have a boomerang that she throws around to like send messages? But I didn't say that, of course, because why? At the time, I was so afraid to even speak my mind out, so I just laughed it off, and then I was quiet about it, and that impacted me a lot. Things also like, you are not Mexican enough, or you don't act like a typical Mexican. Like, what was I supposed to be? Have a thick accent? Wear what? Wear a sombrero, have a big mustache for me to be considered Mexican to their eyes. And those are the memories that I remember growing up here in the South. And I thought that was a normal thing to do. But of course, when I went up north, that actually changed a lot of my perspectives to when I got to know what microaggressions are. Las agresiones mínimas que uno vive acá en el sur de los Estados Unidos es muy diferente. And hay veces que pensamos que es normal, which is actually not normal at all, It's very scary, especially when you're just a teenage kid growing up and trying to fit in, especially in high school. You want to be with the next trend. You want to be with the next, like, for example, now, like the next TikTok dance, 6'7" type style. But, it does kind of much, have a negative annotation on your life throughout. And I'm bringing, my memories from college, which was not too long ago. But I think going to college, when I first starting to realize what microaggressions were, was when I was telling people this stuff. They were like, "Josh, that is not normal to hear." And I think that for the first time ever, I finally felt like I was fitting in a space where I could be anything I wanted to be, especially being Latino. And I think my college experience was the one that actually made me love who I am more, made me love that I can speak more than one language, made me love my skin color the way I am, and just like my little tongue twisters that I can't even pronounce. At times there's words that I can't even pronounce, so I'd be thinking in my mind like what's going on or how things are. So I think, preserving your memory is preserving your identity, and I think that's the person that made me today. Growing up with those microaggressions to now where I'm like an adult now, having a job where if there's like a lady that comes in that's English, I can tune in my brain to Spanish and help them out, especially here in healthcare. I think that's more needed, and that's something I wanted to see growing up. Like, is there people in the healthcare field that are, Latino, that can speak my language, and so on and so forth. And going back on that, there's a quote too that was said, ni de aquí ni de allá, which means nor here nor there. And I think that's something that I have been feeling for a long time, especially like I was going back a little bit about me. So I do reside here in Georgia, and being DACA here in the South is a little different. And it makes you sometimes feel like you're not part of the norm, but you also are part of the norm. It's like a limbo sensation that you get overall. And I think, which is true. Like, I'm not fully American, but I'm not fully Mexican at the time. And it's just a limbo space that we all get to feel at times, or even just identifying with two cultures at times. I have friends who are of mixed cultures who they're like sometimes, like for example, not too long ago, we went to a open mic, which was Per Corazón de Corazón, and we met this amazing artist, and she is half Palestinian and half Colombian. And many of her memoirs or spoken words and poems that she had was how it was hard to identify, or how it's, how can both of them fight at the same time? How can you be like, you're not fully this, but you're not fully that. But the poems that she had kind of really recited with me a little bit, Of course, not the same way that I'm two different cultures. I think more of the sense of like, I'm not American, but I'm not also fully Mexican, and like I'm in the limbo space right now. But it was nice to know. And like, I think that's one of the reasons why I was like, yes, like the preserving memory is preserving identity falls amazing into this. But tell me, like, is there anything that y'all do to help you with that? Or when you have like a blockage in your life that you're like, what's going on, how it is, or like, where I don't fit into this. Imposter syndrome, for example, at our jobs is very, very much real. Um, I feel like we were put in a box where, you know, there was like, oh, if you're like Latino, or as we all known as we're all Mexicans, which we are not, people need to understand there's things like, there's people like Colombians, you know, colombianos. Hay gente que son colombianas de Puerto Rico, de República Dominicana, El Salvador, Honduras, Brazil as well. And I guess the American is not kind of like open-minded that there's more Latinos than just Mexican. So I guess like even growing up, you know, like even growing up, many of us always saw that the Latino jobs, or the way to describe us here in the media, we all work construction, we all work this, which I'm not saying those are bad jobs. I'm just saying that there's more jobs that many Latinos are in, like doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, you know. So I think that's the best way we can describe that. Our identity comes from our memories, and our memories are always built every single day that we have. So as we're talking about memory and how memory becomes our identity, I have a question for y'all, and comment your answers below. But how do we connect to our roots? How do you connect to our roots? Whether you're, you know, Mexicano, Colombiano, Dominicano, Venezolano, Puerto Riqueño, Brasileño, how do you connect with your roots? And how many of us who are here, you know, from a different country still connect with those roots that are instilled from us from back home? You know, for example, my dad, something that he loved doing was, there was this radio station, I remember so clear, that it was called Viejitas Pero Bonitas. Y mi papá siempre se molestaba because I was always like, I hate that song. Why are you playing that song? Why are you playing that radio station? I don't like that at all. And overall, growing up, I actually enjoy some Jose Jose. I enjoy some Vicente Fernandez. I enjoy some, you know, Selena, some boleros de Mexico y de todos que están acá. O mi mamá. Mi mamá always used to be like, en la casa se habla español. Y allá afuera se habla inglés, you know? Always speak Spanish at home, but always speak English outside. And that's something, I guess, that she always brought up with us, and my little brother too, that no matter where we are, no matter where we go, el español siempre va a venir primero. ¿Por qué? Porque el español se habla en la casa, y de la casa uno aprende todo. Aprende cómo hacer, how we grow up, our culture, our identity also starts in the house. So, you know, she knew that by us speaking Spanish overall, that was a way to still keep our culture and our roots together. Books, for example, Cien Años de Soledad. That's an amazing book you can read. You can actually purchase it on Amazon or at Barnes and Nobles, which is like so nice and so pure. That tells us about our culture. It tells us about how we are. I took classes including like Latino culture, or also took Mexican culture, which I learned about the bracero movement, which I didn't know. And now we're seeing it being played off still now, when, you know, there's big corporations that hire immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and then once they finish the job, they call ICE on them, send them back. During the bracero movement, that's what happened. There was like an immigration sort of like negotiation where they let Mexican migrants come work, but many of those big owners did not want to pay them, so they called ICE on them, and many of them got deported without even being paid. But, you know, traditions also that I've played at home. Till this day, I make my altar, and Dia de los Muertos is coming up. So let me know what traditions y'all do at home, or y'all keep doing till this day, that actually keeps y'all rooted to your culture. But this is all the time that we have today. Thank you all for tuning in. Truly, truly, Thank you for starting this journey with me. We're going to have guests throughout the episodes as we come, where we talk about more of our culture, how traditions play a big part in all culture, especially here in the States, how many of us had to like maneuver away how things are done to make sure we achieve where we are. But stay tuned for the next episode coming up. And thank you for watching Yoshi's Garden.